Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Beyond the Arc. It is myself, Ashley Nicole Moss. It is myself. I don't know if that's a weird introduction. Whatever. That's what I'm going with.
I liked it.
It is myself. I am Ashley Nicole Moss. I got my guy, Bill Ryder, with me. And Bill, listen, we were just talking about it. It's only, a week and a half into the playoffs? We're tired. There's a lot.
It's a lot. By the way, teamwork, solidarity. I am also myself. Myself also here. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a good tired. That late game, that Lakers Nuggets game was a great game, but this is the marathon stretch, and I'll admit this. Maybe I shouldn't on an NBA podcast, though. I know every NBA beat writer in the country feels this way. I just root for every series to end. It doesn't matter who's winning, who's losing, whoever's up. That is my favorite team of all time.
Listen, I think we all hit a little bit of fatigue. You hit that wall eventually. It's just interesting we're hitting it this early. It's only the first round, but these series have been so just tumultuous and just so many storylines within the storyline of the main storyline. It's exhausting. And you speak about the Lakers and Nuggets. I was actually very surprised. My dad is not somebody who during the week stays up late. He was up to the very end of this game. That game ended for us on the East Coast like 1 a.m. So it was
East Coast super late.
Yeah, he was up late watching it, but the Nuggets went ahead and gentlemanly swept the Lakers with a 108-106 win. I mean, the game was very close for a while there. I was having the conversation with my dad, and I was like, I don't know. I think the Lakers might be able to pull this out and bring it back to LA. Maybe, they do what's never been done before. And I even
comeback.
I even posed the question. I was like, if LeBron comes back from this, does that solidify him as the greatest of all time? My dad was like, he's not coming back. It's not going to happen. Lo and behold, it didn't happen. Jamal Murray, second game winner in this series, which is interesting. Jamal Murray's been a little bit interesting. Before we dive into all the X's and O's of everything else, he's kind of been up and down this series. He's been a non-factor in games, but when he's a factor, he is so on, and he is such a difference maker, and last night was no exception.
Questionable to play, playing through the pain. Second game in this series where he hit what was basically a buzzer beater. I mean, the Lakers actually had a 1.2 or 1.3 seconds and technically inbounded the ball, but didn't get a real shot off.
Yeah.
Can I give you a crazy Jamal Murray? Jamal Murray's never been an All-Star. He's never been an All-NBA player.
Which you can attribute to some of the injuries and how long he's been injured in his career. Yeah.
Tough position to play and get those accolades too in the Western Conference over the years. Can I just give him some flowers? They're not my flowers. Tom Haberstroh told me this on the radio show. He did the research, but can I steal his data and give it to you?
Sure. Let's do it.
This is great. Over the last 5 playoff seasons, the last 5 years in the playoffs, his effective field goal percentage is an astounding 67% in clutch time, which is basically last 5 minutes, 5 points or closer. He is shooting 56% from the field over that stretch. That is a better clutch time, effective field goal percentage than over those 5 years, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, and as yesterday showed, right, that they won a championship last year, and obviously he hit 2 winners this season. It's not like he had 3 moments in clutch time and took 4 shots. He's the secondary guy. This dude is one of the most effective playoff players of his generation, and he does not get the credit he deserves. So for me and Ash, for myself and yourself, Mr. Murray, here are your flowers. You're a star.
I think also the thing about Jamal Murray, and I know people, they don't care about this, or maybe they don't care about it as much, but I care about things like that, about things like this rather. He's so likable because of everything that he has been through to get to this point. I remember when the Nuggets won the championship last year and how he was just overfilled with just emotion. And what he said in the post conference afterwards, stuck with me and still does whenever I think of Jamal Murray. He said, there were a lot of times when I was going through the rehab and I couldn't sleep because I was in so much pain. And I thought, what if the Nuggets give up on me? But I wouldn't blame them for giving up on me, but please don't. It was just somebody who was filled with just so many trials and tribulations, just reminiscing on all of it to get to the point of being a champion. It just makes it so easy to root for somebody like that. And he does the work. He doesn't need, the glitz and the glamour of it. He just keeps his head down, does the work. And I love after every single game he has, or at least the games in this series, He runs to his dad. It's not the media.
It's
He's
cool,
not
isn't it?
showboating on the
Yeah.
court side. He runs straight to his dad and just wants to celebrate that moment with him. It makes him, the Denver Nuggets as a whole are just so likable. Obviously, Jokic is just a very likable guy. Jamal Murray is in that conversation. It's just so easy to root for them because they just seem like the nicest guys to like play with, play for. Like it's just, I don't know. It just makes it's enjoyable to watch.
And your point, they built it the hardest way, I think, in professional sports, which is with massive patience. And let me give some flowers to the Lakers too, because watching the game, and I know this is not right, but watching the game, I didn't think Jokic had a great game. And then you look at the box score and it's still 25, 20, and 9. He turned the ball over a bunch. But just Jamal Murray had a great game and obviously hit the game winner. Michael Porter Jr., who did not have a good NBA last finals, by the way, this is scary for everybody in the NBA, was in rhythm, played, I thought, like pretty good defense in the times he was on LeBron, hit some huge shots. He's almost unguardable at the three-point line. And this Lakers team full of dysfunction and anger and angst and LeBron drama, and LeBron's an old man, the Lakers still pushed him in this game. I know it is a gentleman's sweep, but it was more competitive than last year's most competitive sweep of all time. So I mean, it's just a brutal reality for the Lakers because this Denver team is so good. Even when they're not playing great or Jokic isn't, they're unbeatable. They feel unbeatable.
I mean, let's break that down a little bit. Jokic had 25 points, 20 rebounds, double-double for him, 9 assists, 7 turnovers, like you mentioned, played 41 minutes. LeBron, 30 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists, double-double for him as well. Played 44 minutes. So, I mean, when you talk about LeBron, it's just a continuous conversation
4 steals
that we're having, but it's just so impressive to see what he's able to do at his age and the amount of mileage that his body has when it comes to this league. But there's things to really dissect when it comes to what the Lakers didn't do well or question marks, right? So Anthony Davis hurt his shoulder at some point of the game. He hit the ground, 40 minutes he played, but he never really looked right after taking that hit to the shoulder, right? Austin Reeves only played 33 minutes, which is interesting. The Lakers led for 69% of this series, and they are going home with a gentleman's sweep. And I think what kind of just wraps up this entire present of dysfunction, the bow on this present of dysfunction, if you will, the Lakers, as we know, and as you would know specifically, usually exit meetings are held a couple of days after a loss. The guys go to the locker room, they clean their stuff out.
I've covered those things. Yeah.
They have meetings with each other, kind of like, what did we do right this season? What did we do wrong? What are we going to work on, in the off season and training camp, all that. It usually happens a couple of days after you've had a moment to digest everything that just transpired. The Lakers did it immediately after the loss in their post-game interviews. They also served as their exit interviews or exit meetings. I mean, Bill, for people who are unaware of exit meetings and everything goes into it, that's unheard of. Like, that's weird.
This is amateur hour stuff. Look, I like LeBron, and I would not be speaking to you if I haven't covered him. And actually, I like him. I think he's a good guy. But this is this team reflecting LeBron. It's a temper tantrum. It is unprofessional, I think, and I think it reflects the severe dysfunction. You might as well have just hoisted a giant flag over the team bus that said Dysfunction University to just message properly, because obviously there's reports out there, and I've heard the same thing, that it's expected that Darvin Ham will not be back as the head coach. I know we'll get into this, but there's all these questions the Lakers have about the offseason, including LeBron James's future. They didn't play Austin Reeves enough minutes, and there's a clip of him yesterday basically kind of, I think it's fair to say, barking toward the coach, like, get me in. He didn't play enough games. Clearly their third best player, I thought, at least in the series, and probably over the course of the season. They're a hot damn mess, and LeBron and the rest of those players wanted this season to be over as quickly as possible. So while it ain't great if you're a reporter, and it's not how you're supposed to do it, and I do think it is some temper tantrum behavior, it also just reflects the fact that these guys are miserable. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be around those coaches. They don't want to be around each other, and they want to get the hell out.
I want to dive a little bit more into Darvin Ham and LeBron specifically, but before that, LeBron did give an interesting soundbite during these exit meetings / post-game conference. And as usual, I feel like in the past 4 or 5 years, this was a question that is going to be constantly asked of him. I think maybe more frequently now that he's kind of heading towards 40 and all the things, regarding Bronny, which we'll dive into as well. But they flat out asked him, his future as a Laker, his future in this league, if you will. And this is what he had to say.
Could have been your last game with the Lakers. I'm not going to answer that. Appreciate it.
Let me ask you a question, Ash. I just want
to real quick though, after that, for people who maybe not know, exit meetings, post game, it just completely ended. That was the last question. Nothing was asked after that. That was it. Bill, I know you like LeBron, but you also know LeBron's very savvy with the media and the things that he says and he doesn't say. I feel like this is a question that's constantly asked of him, and he plays into it every single year in some way, shape, or form. Was this that, or was this he really doesn't know?
Oh, he knows what he's saying. I think it's a few things. So I was going to ask you whether you like needy men, whether that's like a likable quality. Because
that's quite my thing.
Right, not my thing in women. I mean, my wife's great, but like back in the day, I like LeBron. I got to stop qualified. I do like him. The neediness for attention is part of it, and this has been true his whole career. I think it's interesting. So I covered him in his first couple of years in Miami, and the LeBron that happens behind the scenes was also the LeBron that we saw in front of the camera. And he wasn't very popular, and he fixed that. And I think he's regressed a little bit this year to just be like, whatever, this is me. So I think there's some needy. I think he likes to be the center of attention. Remember last year when they got swept by Denver, he pretended that maybe he was going to retire. He was never going to retire. Just got to be about LeBron. So I think that's part of it. I also think that you know he's got a $51 million player option. The Lakers have no options. They are handcuffed anyway. We can get into it if you want, but they need LeBron to come back, either opt into the $51 million or opt out, I suppose, and sign a different kind of deal, or he's extension eligible, which I don't think is a likely outcome. It doesn't sound like that's the expectation with the Lakers, but they need him there, and he's just throwing his weight around because if he doesn't want Darvin Ham, and I don't think that he does, it makes it easier to force out what he wants or just make the decisions he wants. Go get Trae Young, go get Donovan Mitchell if Trae Young's not available, if he is toying with or pretending or suggesting that he could be somewhere else, because the Lakers need him. They need him to be there next year.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Darvin Ham. There's been a lot of conversation about this in the world of NBA discourse, right? On some people feel like, is Darvin Ham the coach for the Lakers? No, but it has everything that has gone wrong for the Lakers his fault. Also, no. There are people on the other side of that. When you have LeBron, when you have Anthony Davis, who, to his credit, has been healthy predominantly most of the season, right? He has had a much better season and has kind of pushed back against the narrative that he's never available. He has been the complete opposite of that this year. So credit where credit is due. Some people say, well, you have those guys, bare minimum, you should have been in a lot better position where you are now. Aaron let us know, our producer Aaron, Anthony Davis played 76 games, which is the most in his career. So again, very much available. So I'm interested because we had this conversation about Frank Vogel in Phoenix, right? And there's also kind of a split jury on that. Some people think Frank Vogel didn't really have much in the deck to work with, and nobody could make that team work. And then some people feel like, well, you had Kevin Durant, you have Devin Booker, you have Bradley Beal, who's a question mark at times. You should have been in a lot better position. I'm interested to hear where you fall with the Darvin Ham situation. Is this his fault, or is this Joinka and everybody else who put this team together their fault, and that's where the blame should lie?
Also, yes, but Darvin Ham I don't think has covered himself in glory. He recently suggested that injuries were the problem, and Anthony Davis, as you noted, played the most games in his career, and LeBron played a ton of games. Neither of those guys cleared the 70-game mark last year. You've got – look, if you cover the NBA for a living like we do, you can't forget how a TV works and not be able to turn it on to watch the games. If you're a Uber or taxi driver, you can't forget that there's a break and how that works. And if you're Darvin Ham, you have to know how timeouts work and that you have them and that you're allowed to call them. I mean, this is like some I know deep in the weeds tactics, but you're allowed to go timeout. I mean, so whatever. Lakers fans have been dealing with this all season long. Yeah, I think he's a part of the problem. Does it help that LeBron James clearly undermined him? And a report came out from Shams, I think is who, I can't even keep track of all the stuff that just unloaded and fell on Darvin the moment that game was over. But does it help that in February there's reporting out there that the players took over play calling duty, which is a nice way of saying just told Darvin you're not in charge? No, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Does it help that LeBron James, I think it was game 3, Ash, was throwing that temper tantrum where he's jumping up and down, right at Ham because Ham wouldn't challenge a play? No, that undermines him.
Mm-hmm.
And does it help that the Lakers were not good enough to avoid the play-in and had to play the Denver Nuggets? Certainly doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've lost LeBron, you've lost the team, and you don't know how to call timeouts. No, he's not a great coach. He did not cover himself in glory. Rookie head coach. People love him as a human being. Really impressive background. Came from Milwaukee, his last assistant job. Has a good resume. Probably just too soon for this kind of pressure. It's hard to coach LeBron James, and they need a new voice. I do think.
I mean, to your point of him bringing up injury, which is insane. Austin Reeves played every game. Anthony Davis 76, like I mentioned, most in his career. LeBron 71. D'Angelo Russell 76. So 4 of their best players played a lot more than I think a lot of people would have expected for a multitude of reasons. LeBron's age, Anthony Davis's injury history. So it's interesting. And you also look at it like this, because I think, LeBron escapes a lot of fault a lot of times because there are LeBron stans and people who ride for LBJ no matter what he does, good, bad, or indifferent. But this team was constructed with his consultation. The head coach was picked with his consultation. So if it doesn't work, you have to go ahead and look at all parties involved. And I understand LeBron's frustration because maybe things seem better on paper than they actually translate to reality. We spoke about it with Milwaukee and the Adrian Griffin, Doc Rivers situation, and maybe the grass looks greener on the other side, but it usually never is. But LeBron, this is what you wanted. Like, this is what you wanted. You got what you wanted. And once again, it hasn't worked. So you take some of that blame.
A lot. You're right. And it's the paradox of LeBron James, because he's probably the best player of all time. And he's probably the worst GM of all time. And those things have overlapped in his career. He's always been pulling strings, and he's been able to not in Miami so much. And that was a source of some tension. Although they did draft Shabazz Napier because LeBron wanted them to at the end of that first round. And then LeBron just hightailed it back to Cleveland, and Miami was stuck with that guy, and it didn't work out. But you're right. But the blame never sticks to LeBron. And especially in a Lakers culture where Dr. Buss and now Jeannie Buss, the culture was you take care of the stars. You make the stars happy. Kobe Bryant was given 2 years at the end of his career that he didn't, quote unquote, deserve. It wasn't a sporting decision. It meant you got Kobe for the last 2 years and you made a bunch of money and they didn't win games and you got the 60-point goodbye. This is the reality. Stars are never going to get blamed. I think it's part of the reason LeBron loves being a Laker so much. The culture fits what he expects, which is I'm LeBron James and I want what I want. But you're right. He is technically to blame for a lot of it. But it's going to fall to Darvin. Am I allowed to swear on the podcast? I can't remember. Are we allowed to say a swear word? Because it's a direct quote.
Do it.
I'm going to roll with it?
Yeah.
It's also so dysfunctional now that last night, Darvin Ham was talking about his rotations. And I'll misquote a little bit, but said, what do you want me to do when one of my like key guys is playing like shit for 10 straight games? That's a shot at Reeves, and that's a shot at D'Lo. So it's, LeBron's to blame, but it's gotten so toxic. You got a head coach after getting eliminated in a gentleman's sweep, really pointing 2 of his guys out and saying they played like shit. It's a hot mess.
You lose the locker room, it's kind of nothing you can do to go ahead and get that back. But you mentioned something. You mentioned about the Lakers culture and how it's kind of been instilled in the foundation of the Lakers to keep their stars happy. And after this break, we're going to talk about exactly how the Lakers are allegedly planning on doing that with LeBron James.
The UEFA Europa League semi-finals on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
You were made for this.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Ashley here, Bill here. And before the break, Bill had alluded to the culture of the Lakers and how when you're in Hollywood, Tinseltown, whatever you want to call it, you do anything to keep the talent happy. And there has been a report. The Athletic dropped it, I believe today or late last night, where team sources have said that the Lakers are very open to the prospect of helping LeBron fulfill his dream of playing with his son Bronny by potentially drafting him in June. Now, Bill, this is a lot
desperate.
This is a lot to unpack because as we know, Bronny has 1 foot in the transfer portal, 1 foot in the draft. but we have had a few conversations on this podcast about Bronny, the basketball player. And you have said that, speaking to a bunch of people, that nobody really thinks that he's NBA ready, at least not this year, maybe a few years down the road. And if he is NBA ready this year, he's definitely not a first round draft pick. He's definitely not a top draft pick. So it is interesting that, one, he decided to declare for the draft, and two, that the Lakers are even considering drafting a player who probably is very far removed from being able to successfully play in an NBA game, even if his dad is LeBron James.
So there's so many details to this. The way that the timing is going to work out with the draft and LeBron's need to pick up his player option or not means he'll know if Bronny has been drafted by the time he has to decide. He'll know where Bronny is. And you're right, Bronny, I've been told that Bronny is, if his last name, if it was Bronny Moss or Bronny Ryder or Bronny Larson or Bronny Gonzalez, I'm just like that, I'm just even then, I'm told he wouldn't be a first round pick. Now, the Lakers drafted 55 in the second round, and they may draft it at 17 in the first round, depending on what New Orleans chooses to do. New Orleans can take that pick this year, or they can take it next year. So let's say it's 55. I think it's less egregious because most guys that get drafted in that point of the draft don't play in the NBA for very long anyway. I think the median age is the median number of games they play in the game, like in their career in the NBA, is 20 or 22 or 23 games or something along those lines. I don't know. It's several things. If you feel like LeBron is tied to Bronny to a certain degree, won't there be the temptation of another team to draft Bronny before that, to try and lure LeBron and or just mess with the Lakers, force them that asset? If having Bronny means you get LeBron, does that have more value if a team can sneak in there and get it first? I don't think the Lakers would. I hope they wouldn't. They need guys. I don't think they would draft if they have a first round pick this year. And I know that
do you think it's even a possibility, knowing how much LeBron wants this to happen and how much the Lakers need this to happen to keep LeBron happy? Do you even think Bronny drops that low, 55? He probably gets drafted a lot higher than he probably should because of the dangling carrot that LeBron invisibly has over the Lakers' head, essentially.
So it's really interesting because if Bronny was like a really good prospect, right? If he was projected as the 20th pick in the draft, you might take him with the 10, because if you don't get LeBron to come along, at least you have this player. The problem is Bronny's not projected as that. So it depends. I mean, I think LeBron James, and you're not really supposed to do this, but I think LeBron James will probably have his agent, Rich Paul, indicate to teams that he doesn't want Bronny to go to, and or LeBron doesn't want to go to, don't do it. And whether that's every team in the NBA or most teams in the NBA, I don't know. We'll have to see. So let's say that you're Sam Presti with the Thunder, you're Daryl Morey. This is a very Daryl Morey energy with the Sixers. Do you just say, I don't care what LeBron and Rich Paul say, screw it, I'm drafting the kid and we figure it out later? Yeah, I think it's possible.
I like a little bit of chaos, a little bit of spice. So if you tell me no, I'm going to do a lot of spice just to prove a point. So if like Rich Paul came to me and like say I'm the Philadelphia 76ers or I'm OKC or whatever, and I'm hearing Rich Paul says, you don't draft him, you don't draft him, you don't draft him. Out of 5 people, I'm sure 4 will listen because you don't want to piss off LeBron. I would be that one like, oh, we're going to take him. Just to prove
I like that energy.
Just to prove I want to watch just because I simply would want to see what he does. What is the reaction? Like, what are you going to do if I take him? Let's call that bluff. I'm drafting him right now.
And a point that we've made a lot here is the Thunder have so many picks in the years ahead. Why not? You can't play all. Why not just reach it? And not only they have so many picks, they're not in. It's crazy how many picks they have, and they're not desperate. They're one of the best teams in the Western Conference. Let me make this point to you too, and I want your take. So the expectation is LeBron, one way or another, is going to stay a Laker. The betting odds, the Vegas odds, are highly in favor of the Lakers drafting Bronny. Wherever that is, however that works out, that is the betting favorite. And the expectation, again, within the Lakers is LeBron will be there, whatever, whether that's a player option or some other arrangement they come to. But LeBron has always been shocking. I credit the guy. He's never forced his way out of a team. He's never pulled a Kevin Durant or a Kyrie Irving or a James Harden where he's get me out. He's always lived up to his obligation. He's always been honorable. And you have every right to go wherever the hell you want when your deal's up. You get to do it. But he's also been shocking. Like, people did not think he was going to Miami. That was a surprise. I remember saying that I thought he might go back to Cleveland when I worked at Fox Sports 1, and Andy Roddick and Donovan McNabb told me I was an idiot for 3 straight minutes while I was stuck in the
Jokes
elevator.
on them, Bill.
Yeah, take that, Roddick. You're a jerk. Even though I kind of think you're not anymore, but you are a little bit. But nobody thought he was going back to Cleveland. The Lakers were far from a lock. My point is LeBron has always surprised. He's always unexpected, and he does keep things close to the vest. Is there a world where you think maybe we wake up and Bronny gets drafted by a team you don't expect because the next day LeBron is opting out and he's going to the New York Knicks or the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Chicago, I don't know, wherever it is. Do you want him on your Knicks? You want both Bronny and LeBron?
No, not quite. Here's the thing.
No.
This is why I look at this. I'm like 50-50 on this. I understand the dream and wanting to play with your son. I think that's incredible. I think that'd be cool to see. It'd be a cool storyline. It'd be cool to cover that. But I also look at it like this. That means to me, if that's more of a priority to LeBron at this stage in his career, then that means to me that he's kind of put winning another championship in the closet in a box and is like, that's not going to happen. Because here's the thing. The Lakers, for all of their dysfunction, are a winning franchise. All they know is winning. For a very long time, that's all that they've ever done, right? So if you're trying to get back to that era and back to that pattern, and if LeBron really wants to win an additional ring, you're going to give up a roster spot to someone who really is not prepared to play in an NBA game. And this is no knock to Bronny. I think he has a lot of potential, but it's not like he's going to be ready to play in an NBA game this time next year or come September, October, right? So that's giving up a roster spot, which is then once again partly the issue of you give out favors and you try to construct a roster of guys that you like, but not necessarily guys that you win with. So I would be curious, actually, if you polled like Lakers fans, how many of them would prefer a winning team over a team that had LeBron and Bronny on it just for the storyline? That would be interesting to me to kind of like gauge that, because I think a lot of guys, well, not guys, I think a lot of fans would rather have a winning Lakers team than a Bronny and LeBron Lakers team.
I don't think they can win without LeBron, and I don't think they can win probably with him because they got to pay D'Lo. He's got a player option. They're basically handcuffed. Now they've got 3 first-round picks that they can trade, so they'd have to send out probably Austin Reeves and then a bunch of other salary to get Trae Young, which I don't think solves anything, by the way, or Donovan Mitchell. But let me gently push back. I actually think LeBron's got a choice between L.A. and happiness and loving living in Los Angeles, family's happy here, and not winning and making a lot of money. Or if he leaves, if he went to a place like the Knicks or the Thunder, and I know Aaron and everyone else says he's never going to the Thunder. I get it. It's Oklahoma City. He's probably not going. But if LeBron said to the Knicks, I'm willing to take the league minimum, the vet minimum. I'm willing to take a lot less. That's about winning. And I'll say this too. The Bucks.
Interesting. I would.
The Bucks have Giannis's brother on the team, and that guy does not belong in the NBA either, probably. And sometimes you just got to do
in that game against the Pacers because everybody was down. I saw some Thanasis minutes, and I was like, "Oh, it's time to shine, baby."
And you guys already have a nepotism thing going on because Jalen Brunson's dad is like the assistant coach or whatever. Come on. Come on.
Jalen Brunson plays, so it's like.
Well, so would LeBron. Let's do this. Let's LeBron to the Knicks.
But I'm not. If I take LeBron and I have to take Bronny, I don't want to do that. I'm not giving up a roster spot.
You don't want that Bronny on there? I think that'd be a deal killer.
If getting LeBron means I have to take on Bronny.
You do.
Can't do it.
It's a requirement.
Sorry.
I mean, the thing. I was just going to say the Lakers to this point. I don't know what LeBron's going to do. I don't know what he's going to do. If he stays in LA, they're going to basically have the same team. Or maybe they'll go hunting for a guy who scores and needs the ball in his hand and doesn't play defense, which I don't think – maybe it helps you against the Nuggets. Maybe more offense helps. I don't think it's enough. So their hands are tied in terms of a lot of the things they can do. And I think it's an interesting part of the equation where LeBron is not trying to decide whether to come back to LA and win. I think he knows he's trying to decide whether to come back to LA and be mediocre for a lot of money and a great life, or to go somewhere else and take a lot less money and maybe have a chance to win.
I'm glad you mentioned OKC when talking about places that LeBron probably won't be going, but OKC has a lot to celebrate. They swept the Pelicans with a 97-89 win. They became the youngest team to win a playoff series in NBA history, so shout out to them. But the bigger story, not OKC, we know how great they are and all, that they're going to do and how high their ceiling is. The bigger question's on the other side of the court, and that's New Orleans. I mean, Brandon Ingram in the game that the Pelicans ultimately got swept in, 8 points. He went 2 from 14 from the field, 0 for 3 from the three-point line, 2 turnovers. This entire series, 14 points, 3 assists, 3.5 turnovers per game, shot 34% from the field, 25% from the three. I mean, just not a good showing for Brandon Ingram at all. The future of New Orleans is definitely something that we're going to probably be following over the next few months, because is Zion staying? Is he going? Do you even want to keep him? How injury prone he has been throughout his entire career. Brandon Ingram, clearly not reliable. CJ McCollum.
He was hurt though. I'll say this, I'm gonna ride it from a little bit.
This series at least.
Yeah, for this series, yeah. I mean, he was back, but he had just come back at the end of the regular season, so maybe he was a little banged up.
But looking at the future of New Orleans as a whole, it's very clear you can't keep these 3 guys together, the names that I just mentioned, and there needs to be some work to go ahead and figure out how to make this work. Ingram is available for an extension. Do they actually want to pay him? You're already paying Zion. He's kind of up and down. Although he had a great season before that very unfortunate injury, he has been injury prone in his career, and more importantly, him and BI have not been the greatest of fit. If you're in New Orleans, what do you do?
I'll tell you a story, and it's going to sound like I'm insulting New Orleans, and I'm not, because I love that city. But I have a friend who's ugly, and he'll tell you he's ugly. He's shorter than I am. He's an ugly man.
Okay.
And he'll tell me for years about his wife and how she would yell at him, and she was mean to him, and she would call him sometimes. You could hear her screaming through the phone, and I wouldn't say anything. I was just like, that is weird. And then one day, years into this, Ash, I met her, and she was beautiful. And I know you try to not react, or not be like, say, is that your sister? You're just like, oh, it's nice to meet you. And she walked away to get coffee, and he looked at me and goes, yeah, I know. That's why I let her treat me that way. Beggars can't be choosers. This is a true story. And he goes, I know I'm a little ugly guy, but this is the deal, man. That's how I did it. So my point is, I think New Orleans is beautiful, but obviously NBA superstars don't, because Chris Paul, generational talent, went away. Anthony Davis, generational talent, went away, right? And forced his way out. Is Zion reliable? No. Are the Pelicans my buddy? Yes. You got to take the abuse and deal with the angst and hope that it works out, because I don't think you can replace Zion. And I, frankly, Brandon Ingram, he's contract eligible. He's extension eligible, I think is what it is. You have to pay him. You have to lock him in there. This is a team that for stretches of this year looked like a contender. They were top 10 in offensive and defensive rating. They were kind of a sexy under-the-radar team. John really, really liked him, and I think rightfully so during the stretch when they played well. I don't think they have a choice, because unlike LA or New York or some other places that are really well run or really, really sexy markets, if you blow this thing up, I think it's a long process to try to fix it. And there's no guarantee you'll do it. So I think you have to accept that yes, you have to roll back with it, pay these guys, and keep it together for me.
I mean, they were the number 1 seed for the first half of last year, so it's not like there isn't promise there. But I think that also the other question at hand, and this is a question that has been kind of percolating since he got drafted. If you remember Zion's face when New Orleans picked him, he thought he was going to be a Knick. And ever since then, there has been a lot of conversation, whether it's, Zion's body language or his weird answering to certain questions, or, the little tidbits of sources coming from his family and, inside his circle, that he doesn't want to be there. That he doesn't want to be in a small market. He wants to be in a big city. He thought he was getting drafted to a big city. That hasn't been his career. On the other side of that, you've seen glimmers of the player Zion can be, but to your point, he hasn't been healthy. There's always one injury after another. There's always one situation after another, and that may be one of the reasons why some teams are a little apprehensive in those larger markets to go after him. But do you see Zion being willing to go through the process of kind of seeing this team through to make it better? Or do you think, listen, it's been real, gotta bounce?
I mean, we live in a league where it's been real is an actual strategy. It's been real, I love you, but I don't love you at all, and I never loved you, and I'm leaving you for somebody bigger and better, and it's called New York City. Certainly in the realm of possibilities. But if you're New Orleans, you do everything you can to keep him. And I think that includes extending Ingram and doing your best to just convince him. And I think rightfully so, to your point, when he's been healthy this year, when he was healthy last year, there have been real signs that this can be a good team. But I think the idea of Zion, remember, this is a guy that called out David Griffin, who's still the GM, during his own contract ordeal a year and a half ago or whatever it was. So, yes, he could leave, but if you're New Orleans, you just got to try to convince him to stick around, like my ugly buddy.
Listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look quickly at some of the injuries around the league and how that's going to affect the playoffs. And also, Bradley Beal, you're forever one of my favorites for this very reason. We'll be right back.
Sail GP returns to the beaches of Bermuda. On CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Ashley here, Bill here. And look, there are some injuries that have transpired over the course of the playoffs. We hate injuries, regardless of where they fall in the NBA throughout the season, but specifically in the playoffs. Porzingis took a very frightening kind of stumble in the game. It looked like a non-contact injury, but it was reported by Woj that it was a right calf soreness, and he will undergo imaging today at some point. But early indications are that he has not sustained an Achilles injury. So a huge break for Boston. Porzingis is a huge part of their offense and defensive efforts. I mean, when you saw this, Bill, we were texting about it. It did not look good, like at all.
No, these calf injuries we've obviously discussed a lot because of other guys being hurt are really problematic. I'm gonna silver lining this thing. I'm gonna do a positive Tuesday. They're gonna beat the Heat without KP. They're gonna beat, or they should beat, absolutely Cleveland or Orlando, whoever advances without him. So you do have more time to navigate this than most other teams would, who are going to be in competitive series or are in competitive series. But you need them back against the Knicks. I think the Knicks are good enough to beat Boston. I'm probably alone on that, but I think the Knicks can do it. And if there's no Porzingis, I think that task becomes easier, obviously.
And when we talk about the Bucks, we would be remiss to not mention Giannis, obviously a calf strain, Damian Lillard, Achilles strain. High doubt that they will be able to play in the potential elimination game 5 versus the Pacers tonight. They're down 3-1. Sources say that they've tried, but it's very tricky to kind of determine strains and how much of a risk you're willing to take on them and how much it would complicate to bring them back and ultimately kind of bring them backwards in terms of their recovery. It might be over for the Bucks. I think they're packing up.
Thank God, though, because would you agree? I've been pretty nice to Doc, I feel like, the last week. I feel like I've been giving the benefit of the doubt.
I feel like you've been – I mean, he's a man when he's already down, Bill.
No, it's not his fault these guys are hurt. But I did get nervous when Rivers told the media, I think yesterday, the day before, that they weren't shutting Lillard down and he expected Giannis to play in this series. My alarm bells were going off because it would be Doc's fault and the Bucks' fault if they rushed one or both of these guys back. And God forbid, and this happens, you got a more serious injury. So it's over. The Pacers are going to win the series. Get these guys healthy, do a reset, have a full camp in the fall, let Lillard and Giannis learn from this season, and have a go at it next year. Please, for the love of all that is holy in basketball, do not play these guys in any of the games that remain if there's a game past game 5. Please do not.
I think that's a safe bet. I think it makes the most sense. But another injury to add to the list that I don't think any of us had on our bingo card, and that's Wolves head coach Chris Finch, who ruptured his patella tendon. Now, when we saw this in real time, it was insane. Like the game stopped, everyone's breath, you could hear a pin drop. Having a coach sustain a season-ending injury was not something that I anticipated happening. But I'm having surgery tomorrow, so it's very up in the air right now if he will be able and willing or not willing, more able to be on the bench to help coach the second round. I mean, this would be a huge loss. It's one thing to listen, your assistant coach, there's no knock to them, but a head coach is a head coach for a reason. And getting coached in the second round, especially against the Denver Nuggets, with your assistant coach and not your head coach, is a big deal.
Yeah, going up against Michael Malone is no easy task. Going up against Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and that team is no small task. I don't know what to say. It's just brutal. What a freak injury. And the amount of pain apparently in this injury. And producer Aaron had talked about this because he's had this injury. I think if I remember this right, Aaron has had this injury or is familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bend your leg. You're immobile. You're in pain. It's not as if he does decide to come back to the sideline. He is going to be able to stand. It's a disaster, but pain is pain. Yeah, this is you're right. Not on my bingo, not on anybody's bingo card. Nobody wins bingo.
I wonder
bingo
if he
canceled.
like a Phil Jackson. When Phil Jackson was coaching the Knicks, he never got up. He rarely ever stood up. He always was in the chair. He just kind of sat there and barked orders at people. I wonder if you give him enough pain meds, if he could just sit on the bench and like yell out things, or at least just like kind of vocalize things to the assistant coach, who then vocalizes it to the rest of the coach. Like, I wonder if that's the rest of the team, rather. I wonder if that is a possibility. But then again, the second round would be happening this weekend? That's a quick turnaround from surgery to coaching.
I'm not a pain meds person. I once got a bad car wreck and they gave me a bunch of pain meds and I took too many on accident. And then Tori Amos in my magazine started speaking to me. This is true. She and I had a conversation. Only it turns out she wasn't real. That is too many pain meds are going to lead to Chris Finch having imaginary conversations with Michael Jordan. I think you just got to let him recuperate.
Kind of the same, you know.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe it'll work.
Anesthesia once after an Achilles surgery, and I guess the night before, one of my favorite actors is Will Ferrell. Love him. Huge Will Ferrell fan.
Yeah.
And I guess the night before, I was watching Talladega Nights, and my mom says I'm coming out of anesthesia, and I'm doing this with my hand, like I'm sticking the shift of a car. And I keep saying, shake and bake, baby, shake and bake. And my mom,
oh my God, Ashley. That's amazing.
What is happening? Yeah. So pain meds, he may not be able to coach. Yeah. Listen, Knicks and 76ers tonight. My Knicks have a chance to close out the series in the Garden. The Pacers and the Bucks tonight. Pacers have a chance to close out this series. So we're wrapping up the first round. But a team that doesn't have to worry about advancing to the second round are the Phoenix Suns. And Bradley Beal, before the Suns ultimately got swept, gave this famous quote, and it said, "I've never been swept a day in my life, and I'll be damned if that happens." Well, the Suns got swept, and here's Bradley Beal.
I'll be damned, huh? Hey, bro.
I love a good sport. First of all, if I'm Bradley Beal and I know the Suns got to pay me $161 million, I'm cracking jokes too. Shoot. I don't really care, if we're being honest. Like, that's just me. What about you, Bill?
You're making your money. You're doing your Talladega Nights. It's all I'm feeling pretty. I mean, look, I'm sure the guy wants to win.
57 guaranteed. I'm cracking jokes.
Yeah, I'll say this. It's hilarious. They're not laughing in that Suns ownership office and that front office because, as we discussed already, I know we already hit this yesterday with you, I and John, but what a bleep show. I'm done swearing. I was just quoting Darvin Ham, but what a bleep show.
Yeah,
what a mess.
It's definitely a mess. We'll dissect it some more tomorrow. We are back on network tomorrow, everyone. So 2 p.m. Eastern time. CBS Sports Network will be joined by John, so the trio will be back. So make sure you set your reminders. You don't want to miss it. All the good stuff happens on network. YouTube's where we warm up. Network's where we really put on a show. So until then, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends. For myself, for Bill, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.